We'll get started with a karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia ma kina kina ki uta, kia ma taratara ki tai. I hai ake ana te atakura, he tio, I huka, hi ho hu, ti hei fo Moderator. Right. So it's, yeah, like I said, it's a great pleasure that we invite you to this NZ chapter event. We've got some fantastic presenters that you can see on screen. So we've got from Waka Kotahi, both Jessica Rattray, who's team leader, Safe System and Road Safety, and James Hughes, the lead safety advisor for transport services. And also from Safe System Solutions across the ditch, we've got Kenn, principal engineer. Excellent. So a few housekeeping things before we get going. This webinar is scheduled for 1 hour long. We'll have about 20 minutes at the end for questions. As we're going, please feel free to write those questions into the chat. Upvote as you go, so the top ones will be coming to the top, and we'll get to those ones first. I will be putting in the chat as well, just as we go, the technical advice note 2211, which came out from Waka Kotahi back in October, so you can go and check and link and get to that. And then at the end, this, as you might have heard when you've joined, this has been recorded. ACRS will be sharing this as well on their YouTube channel. Okay, fantastic. So our first presentation is from Jessica, who'll be taking us through the main changes in the guide, which I guess we're all here and looking forward to hearing.
Great.
Thanks, Jess.
Thanks, Sam, and hi, everyone. Yeah, kia ora. So it's my pleasure to take you through the new audit guidelines. So I will just share my screen. Oh, and my thing has just disappeared. Now, can everyone see that?
Yep, we can see your screen and it's looking good now.
Looking good now.
Perfect.
Cool. So, as Sam alluded to, so in October 2022, the safety audit guidelines were launched, and this was a significant key action delivered under the Road to Zero strategy, and really does support us on our Vision Zero journey. So, and as part of Road to Zero, I know many of you have probably already heard lots and lots about Road to Zero. For us, the critical thing is, people and their safety must be at the centre of our transport planning and investment decisions. It is really critical to achieve our Vision Zero aspirations, and the Safe System Audit Guide has a key role in this. As we know, the influence of the transport system is so persuasive that its safety, or the lack of that safety, affects a wide range of social needs. When we talk about road safety, it's that mobility without risk or death or injury. This can, impact and affects, health, poverty, equity, the environment, employment opportunities, education, gender equality, and the sustainability of our communities. And more importantly, we all have a part to play in this as well. So where does the Safe System Audit Guidelines sort of fit within our Vision Zero journeys? So as you can see, our Vision Zero journey, outlines our translation of the vision to an end state of which a transport network is aligned with Safe System. And this is through the various steps shown on the slide and where the Safe System Audit fits in. So as you can see, we sort of start with that Vision Zero, which leads us into the Safe System principles. We have our Safe System intervention hierarchy, our treatment philosophy, and then actually the implementation, because as we know, unless we actually start implementing some of these things, we're never really going to get there. And you can see this is where the key role of the Safe System Audit plays in this space. So you can see there's lots of different steps before it as well that we need to work on as well. And then hopefully, all going well, we will have a Safe System aligned transport network. So as we know, a critical part is that our road planning standards and guidelines should naturally lead us, as transport planners, designers, engineers, to safe system outcomes. We want those safety interventions that are designed to fit appropriately with their context, that cater for all users, and that really recognise that roads and streets also have a place function as well as that movement function. And importantly, we want our urban streets designed in a way that not only reduces harm, but can improve health by making our communities feel safe and encouraging them to walk and cycle as well. So in terms of the Safe System Audit Guidelines, so within the Road to Zero Action Plan 2020 to 2022, and this forms part of the Infrastructure Improvements and Speed Management Focus Area, the Road Safety Audit Guidelines were to be updated along with other documents and standards to embed the Road to Zero principles, which were a combination of Safe System principles and a number of others as well. So since the previous draft interim release in May 2013, Waka Kotahi has continually reviewed how we audit our transport projects and look to see how we can better deliver road safety outcomes aligned with the safe system. Recognizing while also looking at that, our understanding what it means to achieve a safe system and our operational context has also substantially evolved. So most notably in that time has been the emergence of the Safe System Assessment Framework and, working out how the best way to incorporate this into our business as usual practice. So over the last sort of few years, various technical working groups and advisors have been involved, and I thank them for their contribution and effort in shaping these new audit guidelines. We couldn't have done it by ourselves. So the most visible change to most that you'll see is the name change to Safe System Audit from a road safety audit, and this better reflects the safety outcomes we're seeking, and to really ensure that we are being inclusive of all people that access our transport system, regardless of their mode of transport. We also wanted to be really clear that while the fundamental process is the same as the previous guide, we need people to think about the principles, the safe system principles, and how it is applied differently. And we want to recognize the step change that we are seeking going forward as well. So in terms of one of the key things is that the audit guideline does play a critical role in supporting us as system designers, translating what those safe system principles are into action by really recognizing the different components of how transport projects influence the crash likelihood, risk, and injury severity outcomes. So the audit guideline provides, so what's new is the audit guideline provides an improved approach that applies system level thinking, as well as simplifying two different assessment and audits into a single audit for use throughout the project development lifecycle. So what we're hoping is this should drive better value for money and improve road safety outcomes by ensuring that clients are well informed of the potential safety trade-off decisions that they might need to make. But also talking about what also is new, but also what isn't new as well. So they are still an independent review of the transport project and, assessing the project's alignment with safe system outcomes, and essentially really looking at what the degree of which that project contributes to New Zealand's Vision Zero objective. So, as part of what is also new is that we want to ensure that we're identifying those elements of the project which are not well aligned and identify anything that may affect road safety with respect to any road user and ensure that they are being completed at different stages of the project life cycle. So also what we want to also reinforce is that they're not here, these audits aren't here to redesign a project. They're not there to check the compliance with standards or specifications, or are they either a substitute for a design check or peer review? We'd still really encourage project teams to really look at those design checks and those independent peer reviews as well on top of these. And there's also a range of other different audit and safety reviews that can be done as well. So as you can see on the slide, so the key updates to the guidelines include more namely the name change, the inclusion of the safe system assessment, the changes to the safety concern risk rating matrix, and then updates to the audit template itself and the exemption form, which still is a part of the audit process as well. So in terms of our requirements, this again hasn't changed. So Waka Kotahi still requires that the Safe System Audit Guidelines are to be applied or must be applied to the development of any improvement or renewal activity that involves traffic and or walking or cycling that has funding assistance from the NLTF, so the National Land Transport Fund. So what this doesn't apply to are those sort of auditing of existing network or those specialist applications, and the ones that traffic control at roadwork sites. There's different audit processes for that as well. So essentially, this in itself hasn't changed, and generally we would also encourage other RCAs to incorporate a type of auditing into their normal business processes for maybe assessing like development, new developments and things like that as well. So essentially, in terms of what is also still the same are the stages of the Safe System Audit, which is the same as the previous road safety auditing. So we still have the 4 traditional stages, and they have remained unchanged. So we've still got the feasibility, concept, stage 2 is the scheme, preliminary design, stage 3 detailed design, and stage 4 could be done in that sort of pre-opening, post-construction. And on some major projects, would actually encourage them to be done, would be done on that sense. But what has changed is our project development life cycle. And as you can see, you can sort of see at the top there, we've got the Safe System Audit stages. We've also got the project design life cycle and the project development. So, and we're still working through how to best align these. So while there are some natural synergies, and depending on the investment approach, this can slightly change when audits are undertaken. So again, we're just continue to look at this and work out and as we review and evaluate the implementation of the guide, we'll look to see how we can provide more advice and get that sort of better alignment between those stages in that sense. In terms of the audit process itself, like I've mentioned previously, it does remain largely unchanged. And it's the same to the parties of the Safe System Audit as well. So there's still a client, there's still the audit team, so that consists of an audit team leader and team members, a road safety engineer, the project manager. We have expanded the role of the designer to also incorporate and recognize the design team. It may not be down to a sole designer providing that feedback, and the contractor themselves who are actually building it, which comes in the post-construction or depending on the way the project has been designed or procured in that sense. So again, in terms of the process steps, they are still the same. So in terms of, we're still, the client, so there is a flow chart within the guide itself that outlines the different stages, gives a bit of a description, and then who is responsible for that step. So in terms of the process, this, like I said, this still remains unchanged from the previous process. So, the client confirms what audit stage and what audit they'll be undertaking, procures and works through with the audit team selection, produces that audit brief, has that commencement meeting, which outlines the requirements. The audit team, again, does that review of all the project background information and documentation. If there's anything missing, again, they need to go back to the client. And then that also may include, with the project site inspection, may include also a pre-briefing with the project team. One of the things we do really encourage is, especially on some of those larger projects, is after the team has gone on site and sort of reviewed that information, to incorporate a debrief meeting. This is just a really good opportunity for the audit team to check in with the client and the project team in terms of if there's anything that needs further clarification, if the things that were missing, or if they've got any other questions that need to be answered before sort of launching into the report writing itself. So again, the team produces the report, and then this is and then it sort of again goes through the process of the different responses, the client decision, and then the completion of the report with the decisions, and then sort of implementing as it sort of goes through. So in terms of, again, the audit template will also look slightly different to the previous one. And, and with this one, the key components of this are the introduction, the safe system assessment itself, the safety concerns, and the conclusion. So the introduction is being a lot more, we've fleshed this out a lot more than previously. And this is really outlines those safe system audit details, the type of audit, the audit team, what meetings and site inspections and when they were undertaken. It should really describe and go into a bit of detail around the project background, the objective of the project, the existing conditions and context. It also prompts the audit team to consider and think about what other parts of the system and what other parts of the system is part of the project. So like the function of the road, the speed environment, types of road user presence, and the vehicle composition. So So again, so one of the big new changes that incorporates into our new audit guide is the Safe System assessment. And as we know, this really does, consider and quantify the degree of alignment of a design or concept with safe system principles, really trying to be really upfront with that objective of minimizing death and serious injury. So how we've applied this approach, it is a substantial enhancement in our transport project planning, which ensures that we are, taking that consistent, considered approach, consideration of those high risk crash types and those and that injury risk, and really by breaking it down and prompting that assessment of the three components of risk management, we can make sure that we're actually really informed in terms of what we need to understand. So as we know, we need to consider that and how they actually apply to each crash type, namely, and talking about the severity, exposure, and crash likelihood. So again, these in terms of the expectation for the audit, for the report itself, is there would be done for the base case. And if you're in those earlier stage 1, stage 2s, you might have multiple assessments done for the various options. And as you move through, it's just a good capture for us to see how that design and that project has evolved through the stage 1, and seeing how this is actually influencing or potentially changing those outcomes at the end. So this is something we're really keen, as we review the audit guidelines into 2023 and seeing how they are being implemented, and more importantly, are they actually, are we seeing the change through that? So this is something that we'll look to and monitor, and really keen to see examples of where this has been applied, and so we can see what impact it's actually having. In terms of the safety concern finding, so this remains the same from the previous guide. And again, it's just that opportunity to provide that additional information, that discussion around those specific concerns that should be highlighted for consideration by the project team. And then this will be using what is the new safety concerns matrix. So we've also, I think, as I alluded to before, we've updated the response table, recognizing that the designer/design team will likely not just come from an individual, but the design team itself. And again, this is going to be scalable depending on the size of the project and the team that's involved with it. Now, I think probably the most hotly anticipated component of the audit guidelines is the new safety concerned rating matrix. And, this is a substantial update. As you can see, it is a 4x4 matrix. And one of the key things for us was that incorporation of the safe system injury threshold. So this is to really get that better delineation and highlight those safety concerns where death and serious harm is likely to be an outcome. And so it's really trying to break up in terms of really trying to understand and be deliberate in that severity outcome as being, that sort of fatal, serious, minor, and non-injury. This was a lot of the feedback, and this was a lot of the discussion that we'd worked with the different technical working groups and different advisors. And it also was fed out of the OSRoads update to the road safety audit guidelines as well. So we've still also got the probability of the crash. And at this point in time, while we don't have any set definitions of exactly what does very likely down to sort of unlikely mean, it does mean that it does require some professional judgment, considering the exposure and how that gets incorporated into the rating. And so in time, this is also something we'll continue to refine on. I know a lot of people really want a hard and fast, is it between this and this, and there are some guidance that OSRoads have incorporated with their new document, and that's something that we'll continue to refine and get that feedback on in the future as well. So I think I've sort of done sort of a quick, it's amazing how quickly the time goes when you're sort of doing these sort of presentations. So it's sort of a zoom over the changes that are there. So, but also, we do acknowledge that the safe system audits are not the silver bullet. They're not going to solve all of our problems, and we do need to do more work embedding those sort of safe system principles across all of our work, our standards, our guidelines, and our broader processes. But this audit does better inform those decision makers on how aligned projects are to a safe system, which will ultimately get us to that, that harm minimization, harm elimination on our transport network. One of the, the key things for us is this new guide does reflect current best practice, and it aligns with industry expectations. We know this has been something we've been asked for a number of years, so it's really great to actually be able to do this and have that industry alignment. So again, the guide and the associated documents are available on our website. And if you've got any issues with accessing them, please let me know. Also, as I've said, we are seeking feedback on the guide, and we welcome any comments. We know we haven't got it perfect, and we're looking for anything that might need further clarification, or what's working and what's not working. So we will be reviewing the effectiveness of the change during next year, 2023. It's amazing how quickly that's come up. And this will include gathering feedback. We'll be looking to post a feedback form on the website itself, or you can also, there's an email link at the bottom of the slide that you can send any initial feedback as well. So again, really keen to understand how it's working, how it's not working for people, and how it's actually impacting on projects and project outcomes as well. So I will leave it there for now and hand over to Kenn.
Kenn. Thanks, Kenn.
Thanks, Jessica, and thanks, Sam. And thank you all for the opportunity to say a few words associated with this really exciting time for New Zealand. Now, I think many of you know me, but my contact details are there. Particularly keen to talk to anybody who is, as Jessica said, trying this out and finding little issues or finding things that are really beneficial. I'm keen to incorporate those into the training courses we are running across New Zealand associated with road safety audit and safe system assessments. So my contact details are there, or you can just find me on LinkedIn and shoot me a message. I want to cover off a little bit of the sort of very high level Austroads style thinking and things that are happening in this space. And then I'll sort of refine it down as to why I think the New Zealand approach is going to be quite effective and quite useful. But some of you are familiar with this diagram. It looks a bit scary. Don't get caught up in the details of it, but it was put into the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6, which is the road safety audit guidelines, to try to give people an indication of the different ways safety is injected into transport infrastructure projects. And you can see that there's quite a bit going on, and lots of different processes and practices. In this one, they went with the idea of sort of safety vision stuff, proactive techniques, predictive techniques, and reactive techniques. Now, there's a bit of debate as to whether safe system assessments sort of fit in here or should be up here. We won't get caught up in that. But you can see, to us who work in the industry, this is sort of all things that we're familiar with. Some of them we need to get our head around a bit more. But for people not as entrenched in road safety as we are, it can start to get a little bit complicated. And further to this, I was recently running some training for a road authority because of their confusion. And I was dot pointing down all the different road safety investigations, assessments, audits, and different techniques that can be employed on an infrastructure project. And I've dot pointed them here. I'm not going to go through every one of them, but I did put that in there just to show the complication we've sort of built as an industry in injecting some of this in. So the reason I sort of say all that is I think the need for us to simplify, to look for opportunities to consolidate these assessments is important. It'll provide less confusion for people. They will be more likely to sort of get involved and actually seek this independent advice and review in their processes. I will give a prize to anybody who can tell me one I haven't got in that list. If you can do it, I don't know how we'll get you the prize. Write it into the Q&A. But the two in there that have got a lot of traction, obviously, is road safety auditing, and that's been around for many years, 30 plus years in New Zealand, and the Safe System Assessment, which, as Jessica rightly explained, is a newer assessment technique. And that is, these two are complementary, but also overlapping. And it was never sort of shied away. I mean, if you're going to have an independent team look at an infrastructure project with the goal to improve road safety in the end, you're going to overlap on some elements. And so across Australia and New Zealand, the adoption of the Safe System Assessment Framework, so this document, which was developed by or written by a group of people trying to nut out how do we articulate some of these principles of the safe system and let them play out in some sort of assessment technique. And they did a really good job, I think, on that from a high-level conceptual way, and it sort of addressed some of the challenges we had with road safety auditing. I'll get into that in a little bit more. But across Australia and New Zealand, every jurisdiction has basically committed to undertaking safe system assessments in one form or another. Well, except for Western Australia, they cordon them off, so I'm very up there. They're going a completely different approach to it all, which is okay. But everyone else has in some way committed to that. And at an Austroads working group level for updates to the Guide to Road Safety Part 6, there was a lot of discussion about, well, how do we incorporate more safe system thinking and more of the value of safe system assessments into the road safety audit process? And a lot of jurisdictions were coming out with supplementary guidance and specifics on the Safe System Assessment Framework, which clarified some things that the original Austroads Safe System Assessment Framework didn't really particularly deal with, gave some local jurisdictional specifics and I suppose clarified things that they do differently to the Austroads guide, as you would with any sort of supplement. So there's a few of those floating around. So there's a fair bit going on in Australia and New Zealand around this, and we saw this update from the original Austroads guide, well, not the original, the one back from the day, Road Safety Audit, to a split there to the Part 6 and Part 6A. One was associated with more the policies and procedures around road safety auditing, and one was more focused on the practice of road safety auditing. And the idea of the Safe System Assessment Framework was integrating in. Now, some of this filtered in here, not all of it, and there was the production of the current Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6. What a lot of people really would have liked to see at this stage was all of this to have been incorporated in here, and that Austroads could have produced something that covered off everything and started that process. And to a degree, it's really felt that it will be the next step for Austroads, is to start looking at how do we produce something similar to the New Zealand guidelines by adding the parts of the existing Part 6 and the Safe System Assessment Framework to produce something similar. So in that sense, I feel that New Zealand has jumped ahead there and is really leading the way, and will no doubt find some of the issues and challenges, which is going to assist Austroads, other jurisdictions in starting to move further down this track. So I think it's a real tribute that you're willing to jump out there, be the leaders, and pave the way for one process that really sets Safe System absolutely embedded in that audit independent review process associated with transport infrastructure projects. The reason I'm pretty passionate about road safety auditing and safe system assessments, and safe system assessments particularly excite me and continue to excite me for a number of reasons. And one of them is, as I mentioned, it deals with some of the deficiencies of road safety auditing in a nice, clean, systematic risk assessment style process. And it takes us away from that opinion, or to a degree, away from the opinion based on what is safe system and what is not. And that was classic stuff we saw from jurisdictions, which was, oh, we can't do that, that's not safe system, or this is a safe system program and only safe system things will be funded. And people saying, what on earth does that actually mean? You're taking a philosophy with some principles and then trying to make determinations on the ground with very specific things as to whether or not they, meet these principles or not. So some sort of framework was required. And again, Austroads has done a great job there in getting some really great minds together to produce a process to give us as practitioners something to be able to make some sort of assessment on that and be able to place, well, this is how well it aligns with safe system principles. And I'm going to use this example here of a flushed median with a wire-up safety barrier system. And the project is one which still is a little bit new. New Zealand's doing a lot more of it now, but still, is a fairly new way of doing things. And if and when a traditional road safety audit comes out to look at this project in its design phase, for example, and so they're adding this flush narrow median, the audit team's sort of sole purpose is to identify risks associated with the implementation of this project. Okay, so they don't have a mandate to clearly articulate the safety benefits. That's not their role. Okay, and that's fine, right? And they clearly do it. And it's such an important thing that people do think about all of the risks associated with our new investments and changes to the operating environment of a road network. However, sometimes that can be a real deficiency in terms of us convincing others to innovate, to change things, to do new practices that we know are going to get us better alignment with safe system principles, because they receive the independent advice on safety that lists risk after risk after risk after risk. And they're all really legitimate things to be worked through by the audit team. But at a high level, it can give that impression that this is a highly risky project because it's not upfront stating the benefits we can see for this. That job is sort of left to the project management team and the business case developers and those sort of things. And they usually do a pretty wonderful job of it, but they're always fighting different battles. So the idea for us to front load this assessment with something that articulates that safety benefit up front and then proceeds to go through a logical process of how do we manage the risks that this will create, how do we alter things, is just wonderful from that innovation, from us being able to actually genuinely transform our transport network closer to safe system rather than just tweak around the edges with things that are, that don't fundamentally change things. This process is wonderful. And the fact that we don't have to do these two separate things now and that they can be combined to one and the benefits, I think is a really exciting place to be. And upskilling the industry in this is exciting. And it has been an amazing investment by Waka Kotahi to upskill industry in safe system assessment, contemporary practice in safe system auditing now, road safety auditing with that safe system lens, and a variety of other things. And this is through formal training, through communities of practice, through wonderful seminars and initiatives, and industry really getting involved, like the College of Road Safety, stepping it up in terms of the seminars and other things. It's been wonderful to see. So the thirst for capability and capacity development is huge, and it's a real tribute. So we've been really excited to be running a lot of the social distance education, which is where we run online modules live, but we also have people doing field work near their home or office. And here's a few photos of them from different people out there, some faces you'll recognize, some of you on this webinar. So we currently still run the road safety audit course in this social distance model and the safe system assessment course. We're not at the stage yet of combining those into a safe system audit course for a couple of reasons. The first one is we want to get a little bit of information and feedback on the application of this. And so we'll be certainly getting involved in some of these and playing them out, and we want to get that information. The second one is that it's a fair bit of information to cover in the course. So splitting it out into these two for now as we sort of refine that, I think is an important process. But both courses have been updated to reflect the new guidance to understand how this piece fits in. And you still really do a safe system assessment up front in the safe system audit process, and then continue to the audit process as well. So it's all very relevant too. Also, there's a lot of road safety auditors out there that have been through the Safe System engineering workshop and been practicing road safety auditors. And so the ability for them to supplement with just the safe system assessment component is really advantageous over the next period. So Waka Kotahi is subsidising these courses and continuing to build an army of safe system auditors across New Zealand, which is exciting, because we do want everybody to be up to speed with the latest practice, to be passionate about it, to be pushing their organisations to implement these processes in standard practice. So if you go to the Waka Kotahi website and to the Vision Zero learning page, you'll be able to see and book into the training courses, and they're really wonderful. The passion from Waka Kotahi in getting this up and running, but the participants are so eager to understand how to implement this into their processes and practices, be that consultants, local road controlling authorities, Waka Kotahi themselves, representatives, or others as well. We've had quite a variety of people through. So really, if you haven't done it, the course yet, I encourage you to jump onto Waka Kotahi website, book yourself in, share it with colleagues. Let's continue to build a big army of safe system auditors across New Zealand. Thanks, Sam. I think we wanted to leave a lot of time for questions, because there's some wonderful sort of head scratching going on about exactly how this process fits in. And we've got James there as well, who will be able to answer lots of the technical questions that pop up. So over to you, Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. And I could definitely put hand up and say I really thoroughly enjoyed your training courses as well. So, And thanks Waka Kotahi for sponsoring them too. It is a great initiative. First up, yes, while we're still typing your questions away there in the background, I think you might owe Glenn Corrie a prize if you go back to your list. So level crossing safety impact assessments, the additional Kiwiwara ones. Was that on your list?
Well done, Glenn. On the ball, I think I had a couple of level crossing assessment techniques in there, but yeah.
Yeah, I saw Alcam in there for sure.
Shipping it over to you, Glenn. We've got your address.
Fantastic. Right, I'll start us off with a question then to both Jessica and James. So if someone's currently going through a road safety audit process at the moment, what should they be doing to embed the new Safe System assessment?
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Sam. I'll start, and then if James wants to add anything in there. So essentially, if you're in the middle of doing an audit itself, like don't stop and change to the new one, and just wait for the next stage that you're going to start for the next audit itself. So while you're within, so we know that there's typically the 4 stages of the audit. If you're right in the middle of writing one or reviewing them or providing that feedback, continue down that path. And then for the next one, when you enter the next stage, would really encourage you to uptake and embed and use the new templates and the new guidance in that stage as well. But if you've got any more questions specifically how that, if it's like, from a project on the state highway, really good to reach out to James and get his specific advice on that. Vice versa, if you're within an doing the project for an RCA, get their advice from them, and they may also come back to us from an investment point of view as well and see what actually needs to be done. So yeah.
James, no, that's
yeah. No, I think Jesse summed it up quite nicely. I mean, there's no, I would say, downside to focusing more on harm minimization, which is what the new matrix table does. So even if it's an audit that's already in progress, then just again that additional emphasis on harm minimization would make it maybe move towards that safe system outcome.
fantastic. Now, questions are coming thick and fast. Many of us, so this is probably both you two again, many of us are dictated by the approach of our local council. So when does this guide become official practice? Or is it based on individual councils to follow or not?
So essentially it is, so it came live or became official once when the TAN notice went live. So I think that was, officially the 1st of November, I want to say,
Right.
From memory. So that's when it officially comes in. Again, for councils that are using, and again, that comes back to that investment requirement for projects that are drawing down funds from the National Land Transport Fund, this is a requirement. We are working with our sort of internal processes, ensuring that these, that these are being done and completed as part of the inputs into TO, and it's part of that investment decision, I guess, gateway in terms of unlocking that next rounds of funds. So again, we're looking at improving those and what that looks like. We know that it's not perfect. We're all human. And so we're looking at ways of improving that process as well. In terms of it's up to the other councils in terms of how they may use these guidelines or similar for other projects for things that they fully fund themselves or from a development point of view as well. But specifically, there is clear investment policy for those projects that draw down on our NLTF in that sense.
Fantastic.
Sorry, can I just give a plug in there for the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6, which at the back of it has a template road safety audit and safe system assessment policy that local controlling authorities could use to pick up to integrate into their practices associated with things where they aren't mandated to undertake this. So at Waka Kotahi work, yes, they're going to have to do it, but what about all that other stuff that interfaces with the public road network? So there's an option for you to put up the line to potentially get that integrated into local government practice.
Fantastic. I'm going to try and cover off 2 questions with 1 question. So for this, it goes through all the 4 stages, well, all the stages through to post-construction. How do you think the Safe System Assessment framework part would change as you go through each of the stages, or does it change?
No, so essentially it doesn't change. We acknowledge that we know it is definitely more effective in those first 1 or 2 stages, but it was felt that there's no harm in just continuing that to make sure that you've got that continued alignment. And again, as we start looking at how it is being implemented and how it's actually picking up, are we actually getting those outcomes? And for better or worse, there are slight changes that happen through that project development life cycle that may not have been quite crude. As I said, those different life cycles are slightly different, and where those audits get undertaken does vary slightly in terms of the business case process. So it's important that it is going all the way through, and I guess we want to be able to say and have a look back and reflect on that full project life cycle in terms of what impact has it actually had, and at the end of the day, have we got what we set out to achieve initially in that first place? So while essentially acknowledging it is going to be less effective, it's still going to be really good in terms of telling us that broader alignment from a safe system outcome point of view.
Yeah, I think the other thing, Jesse, is that particularly with the safe system assessment, is that design teams can undertake their own assessments, and so they can almost preempt the independent audits and those results. And as you move through to detailed design, you may be getting more granular in the different options available from a designer's perspective of treatments for particularly vulnerable users. And really the safe system assessment, I kind of think of looking at the pieces of the jigsaw that you're putting together for each network user, and then when you come to put those together in the scheme itself, then that's where that would morph into an audit that looks at the interrelationships between those treatments and how they influence or compromise in some cases each other. So it's helping that balance. And I think just at any stage, you can employ either type of audit, or the client can suggest either type of audit. I mean, we've tried, and Jesse's slide around the processes themselves was very much geared towards our business case process as it currently is. Really, ideally, that the audit process is kind of business process agnostic. So when you think that the project is in an appropriate stage, or you or the client thinks that the project is in an appropriate stage to undertake an audit, which could be a combination of safe system assessment and traditional audits, then they go ahead. It's all really adding that value to, as Jesse said, the outcome that you're trying to achieve with the project.
So James, so if they've done a separate safe system assessment framework, and then that's from the design team, and then do they then have to do a completely independent, again, safe system assessment framework when they come to do the road safe system audit?
Yeah, I would suggest the idea of, or the well, I would say yes, actually. One of the fundamentals of the audit process is that it is that independent set of eyes. I think the only reason I would say that for the designers to do their own audits is then when it comes to the almost designer's response, then you'll be prepared in a way to say, and this can be highlighted in the inception audit and the inception meetings rather, where the designers discuss the design and can give the auditors a steer as to where they feel that the designs may have some issues that are still being worked through. So yeah, I think it still adds the value.
Fantastic. I think I've got one. Oh no, I scroll down. Right, I'll read Gemma's just to make sure we've covered that one off. As a council, we request safe system assessments through the design process to inform the design. Why audit at the end? I think we've done that. If we continue with this, can we then just follow the safety audit process, which I think you've talked about, or do we have to have our assessment audited? Do you want me to read that again? So as a council, we request safe system assessments through the design process to inform the design. So why audit at the end, which you've answered? Yes. Process. Yeah, I think you've answered that. That's fine. So you talked about independence. For post-construction audits, guidance expect that different infrastructure options are assessed in the Safe System matrix, or is it the guidance to undertake an assessment of what has been constructed and perhaps a suggestion of low-cost improvements that have the great safety benefits?
I wouldn't even suggest low costing. I mean, it's just improvements for safety benefits. That's where I think the client's decision ultimately is still, is the risk or the issue that's been highlighted. Does that justify the investment? So that is still very much that client's decision, and it will be just a greater focus on the harm minimization, and we would expect that to be covered off, particularly by an RCA or the client's rationale as to why they've made their decision to do whatever their outcome is that they've decided. Fantastic.
And what would your ideal Safe System team consist of? I was going to say who, but I misread that.
No one, because we wouldn't need to do them.
Yeah.
That would be ideal.
Sure. But I guess is that a question of, is there different specialties of people or different types of people that you think you would want to see on the Safe System assessment framework?
Yeah, I think, again, it comes back to, I guess, the audit team and the selection in terms of the type of project and what it's there. So I guess there's no one perfect team. It'll be a combination of people with different skills and experience for that type of project. And, also more importantly, I think for me, a part of that ideal team is actually, bringing new people on board as well. And, from that sort of capability building as well. So, I'd like us to see a lot more of that sort of people being used as observers or bringing on the team in that learning environment, because it is a learning journey. And, I always appreciate the time I spent on different teams and with different auditors and team leaders and picking up various things that you wouldn't normally pick up yourself. So I think it's really understanding. I think that's why, at that project briefing time, really working closely with the client in terms of understanding the different aspects of the project, the outcomes, and who might be that right audit team. I know there's also that sort of the consideration of having the same audit team consistently through the project life cycle as well. But again, also recognizing while consistency can be good, you may need to bring in other expertise and skill sets through that time as projects get more detailed or the different aspects of it. So again, it's having that flexibility and that agility within that to enable that to happen as well. And again, that's something we need to work on and provide probably a bit more advice and guidance in that space as well.
Fantastic. Excellent. Right then, so the new Safe System rating approach probably means we're going to get a lot more serious and significant audit items listed. What are the practical implications of the RCAs receiving these arguably more severe assessments?
I think what it's really going to highlight is the need to make those decisions and document them. I think there's no point, we don't want to shy away from the fact or downgrade if there is going to be harm left, in that ability, that severity outcomes within the transport network. I think it will be a shock. This is not necessarily meaning we have to address everything, but it's highlighting, and so clients can make informed decisions about what risk and that level of risk they are wanting to take on. But it's also recognizing that a lot of this stuff is not doesn't necessarily mean high expensive cost interventions. It might be actually we need to start looking at the broader safe and appropriate speed limit components. We need to look at some of those more cost effective infrastructure solutions. We need to look at reallocating road space. So again, it's trying to look at through a lens of this isn't going to be all about expensive infrastructure solutions, but also really making sure that that clients are fully aware of where we're actually putting a lot of investment in these projects and still not actually getting good broad safety outcomes. So I think it will be a bit of adjustment as we work through that. And I think what it should also highlight is, and really question ourselves as in this space of transport professionals, is what are those key things that are still leading to to those severity outcomes, and how do we how do we shift in that space as well, and how we identify it. So yeah, I think there's still a bit of learnings to go under the bridge with that one. Does anyone else want to add anything further?
Oh, I think you've summed it up well there, Jesse. Thank you.
You've done well.
Good job.
Do you have any guidance, or can you provide guidance on, so if you had larger projects, how you'd segment them up, or if there was, say, changes in the design process as you go through, would you then have guidance about redoing safe system assessment audits, or safe system audits? So,
Ken, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, I just popped in I saw that question came in, popped in a link to a fact sheet that we produced on this, because there is no direct clarification. I hope that's sort of coming up. There's no direct clarification at an Austroads level. The Victorian government has a similar set of information about how to sort of break up these larger projects. But really, I mean, at a principal level, it is a risk assessment methodology. And you break it up the way you would break up any risk assessment and go through that process. So people get quite caught up about the scoring aspects of it, but and the numbers that come out. But think of those as simply ways to present your high, your medium, your low risk, and it's just works really well with some of those specific principles of energy management and those sorts of things. So I'm happy to chat with anybody if they've got specific ones. Chunking it up into homogeneous sections seems to work really well and is logical around risk assessment methodology. And there's no right or wrong, but it's more just about, does that kind of look logical and right?
That's really good advice, Ken. I think, I think one of the things is, as you chunk a project up, is the interface between the two projects, between the chunks. There's also, don't forget those bits, because time and again we look at corridors and we divvy it up into projects for delivery, and that includes the detailed design. So making sure that they all stitch together nicely is a key learning from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
fantastic. Well, we've pretty much come to the end of our time. I know we've got a few more questions on there, so I will send those to the panelists here, and we'll see if we can get some answers out to the people that put their names on it.
No, and that's really, I was just going to say, because what I did miss is that we will be publishing some FAQs on our website as well about this. So that's really good. That also forms a basis that we can answer them and incorporate that's the ones that we already have, and we can include that on the website.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jess. Okay, so thank you very much to our panelists, Kenn, Jessica Rattray, James Hughes. Thank you very much. I will do a closing character here, but before I do, I just want to say, wish you everyone a very happy holiday, safe travels. Please be safe as you drive and those around you. And thank you very much again from the New Zealand chapter of the ACRS. Unahia, unahia, unahia ki te uru tapunui, kia wātea, kia mama, tina ko, tina te wairua, e te ara takata, koe ra I rongu, whakaira ake ki runga, kia tina huie tae kie.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks for the
Thank you.
opportunity. Good job, guys. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.